Just because you're smart, just because you're capable, doesn't mean that sticking through it in academia is the best place for you or the best decision.
Yeah, and it was the whole experience was really heartbreaking
Yeah.
because I don't like to I don't like to feel like I'm giving up on something that especially when I made that level of commitment to it. It was a
Mm.
very difficult decision for me to stop with the program, and I don't want to disparage like I don't want to talk about my supervisor in a
Yeah.
bad way or anything like that.
Mhm.
Um, because it's the way things were in the lab. It's not a unique situation just to him. And
Mhm.
as a person, I've always said like I liked my supervisor on a personal level.
Right. Yeah, me
I don't
too.
think he's
Yeah.
I think most people who know him do. He's a quiet, reserved guy. He doesn't interact with a whole lot of
Mhm.
people, but I mean, he's a likable guy. I think he cares about people.
Yeah.
I think he cared about me.
Mhm.
I just think I was in a situation where things, and like I said, when I came in, the projects that I don't want to get too much
Yeah, yeah.
into the specifics of it, but the projects that were before me were really exciting. I got to use I basically was doing genetic engineering, a mouse model to study the function of a protein
Mhm.
using a virus, using live animal models. I got to his credit, he gave me the resources to, I had this idea to do a rat model for the same gene because there was limitations of using mice. I wanted to explore
Mhm.
using rats and to get a better, larger bones to be able to kind of, um, see things during the growth of the animal that we weren't really seeing in the mice because of some of the technical limitations of doing the experiments on such small animals.
Mhm.
So like stuff like that was great. I just think that the projects were kind of out of our league
Yeah.
in terms of how we were set up as a lab.
Your infrastructure, the
And
personnel.
the personnel, I mean, the lab technicians in the lab were not familiar with animal models,
Yeah.
and nobody worked up there
Right.
with the animals. Um, and a lot of things were disorganized. A lot of the resources actually came from having a collaborator in the States that was, a distinguished, person with a great lab and putting out a lot of great research,
Mhm. Mhm.
but it was kind of a distant resource, not something that I could easily tap into. And the resources in our own lab depleted pretty quickly because the PhD student left quite a mess behind him. But again, retrospectively, I understand why.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That he was dealing with the same limitations that I was, or the same problems that I was.
Mhm.
Um, the other students in the lab also left. The lab technicians, there was one who left before I got there, and she, did some, I guess, some cell culture, but even she didn't work with the animals really. And then the lab tech that was there, I loved her, again as a person,
Mm.
but it was completely out of her expertise. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Um, so the technician couldn't help me. There was no students there to help me, and the supervisor himself was not an expert on any of this stuff when it came down to how to do the experiments, but also, wasn't as involved as he needed to be. Let's just be honest about
Yeah.
when it comes to
Mhm.
um, developing the ideas, understanding the ideas
Right.
that I was running with. I came up with all the ideas for the projects. I had a lot of excitement.
Mhm.
I did my research. I knew my stuff. I put together all these ideas, and then it just kind of was like, okay, well, you're on your own. And these projects were big ideas that would have required cooperation and collaboration between multiple people within a lab setting. And I didn't have access to anybody.
Right.
And every other supervisor, has their own problems, has their own students that they have to support. And I think my supervisor also got, he was just very involved in many different other things that didn't have to do with the work that was going in the lab. Like he was very involved in the dental school admissions. He was fixing
Mhm.
the admissions process. He was helping with the administration of the dental
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
And I feel like partially reason why he invested the majority of his time into that stuff was probably because he felt like he was getting a little out of touch with what was going on in the lab, and you know what I mean, wanted
Mhm.
to put his he's a little older, approaching retirement.
Yeah.
He I don't think he was really able to dig into the science the way that I was able to do. And what ended up resulting was just a lot of responsibility on me, and um, doing a lot of things that I was told I shouldn't be doing,
Right.
but I kind of had to do in
Yeah.
order to make the project go anywhere. And it just couldn't get it off the ground. I didn't have any support when it comes to even just, lab technician stuff, like, making solutions, keeping track of stuff, helping train, right?
Right. This is all time.
Cleaning up glassware,
Right.
just everything, right? When you think about it, and then all the animal protocols and everything like that, which again, we don't need to
Right. Yeah.
get stuck in the minutia of that. But, so it was a lot. I was taking on a lot more than I could handle. And I pushed my limits of what I was capable of handling at one point to its maximum.
Right.
And
I watched this all play out. Yeah.
As did several other people. And the thing that kept me going a lot was the fact that everyone seemed to respect me, even though I never published an article. I was there for 4 years. I didn't publish anything. I was spinning my wheels for 4 years trying to make some sort of progress. That's why I say it's heartbreaking. I put so many hours, and we're not getting paid anything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, below minimum wage for the hours we're working, for sure.
And at the end there, like, we got a couple undergraduate students. We got an undergraduate student and a master's student who didn't really know how to do anything at the time, which is normal in that situation. You usually have the infrastructure to be able to train these people. I was that infrastructure.
Yeah.
And I was trying to make my own projects go. So I was working double hard in the last 8 months or whatever, leading up to when I finally decided, to take a step back. And I remember there was multiple days I was there for over 20 hours on my feet, running around in the middle of the night, right? And I had access to everybody's equipment. Everybody trusted me to use their equipment. Everybody, you know what I mean? I didn't want to burden people too much, but they knew I was running around doing my thing in the middle of the night. Me and my supervisor had friction. So I'd leave at 11 a.m., come back at 4:30, work all night, leave again at 11 a.m. I would sometimes sleep on my desk, wake up at 9 and keep going. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and I was doing all this stuff by myself.
Yeah.
It's not like, for the most part, no one was suffering through it with me. I did make my undergrad student stay late with me a couple of times. But it's like all this work and it's going nowhere. And I didn't have anyone to consult with inside of my own lab that was going to help me at that point of my development. I was already... I needed real resources that I didn't have. So
what do they say? You're like, you're something without a paddle or something. You're out without a life raft.
In Schitt's Creek without a paddle or something like that.
Up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. Yeah, you were out too far and really couldn't pull yourself out.
I was trying hard to pull myself out.
Right. And so that kind of sums it up there, right? Like, it's not an entirely uncommon story either, especially for a PhD, which I think is sad in many ways. Like, oftentimes we have some of the brightest people in our society try and enter a field in earnest. Like, they really want to do great science, commit themselves to the work, are willing to work crazy hours, but really aren't rewarded or sort of commended for doing that. It's almost expected.
Yes.
And it ends up becoming like a race for the people willing to be disrespected the most at a certain point, if you stick with it long enough, at least compared to entering the workforce and like most other industries.